Wrong way. Oh yeah. No better. The longer your strokes and the longer the tool, the more fair it becomes. This is a really, really fine pattern maker's rasp made by Nicholson. That thing's like $55 nowadays. I've had this one for 30 years. Even back then they were about 40 bucks. But it leaves a really, really smooth finish. Does a real good job. This is as fine as I'll get with a rasp. This is the cheapest, most effective tool you can get for smoothing as a sandblast. It's a belt sander over a block of wood with rounded edges, stretch tight. There's nothing that can replace this. I see guns, high dollar guns, Brownings and Winchesters and Remingtons that are really expensive guns. Beautiful, beautiful guns. But I look down these surfaces right here and they just wavy where they've machined them and they haven't come back and done something like this. They can't make a machine that makes it as slick as this will. And this is so cheap and so simple, but it's so necessary. They can do all the CNC stuff and all the machine stuff they want to. They never replace a pair of hands and a brain. My father knew what he was doing when he created the human body. Until I get further along, I stop at 180 grit sandpaper. And when I get the whole, because I'm going to put blocks and clamp this thing in when I work on the other end. And it doesn't do a lot of damage, but there's no point in getting it perfect. In the wood process, I take it down to 320. After the 180, I'll go 220 and then 320. But I don't do that yet until I get it almost finished. One of my trademarks is this little ridge right here. I've never had anybody feel that, grip that rifle, and say, wow, that's just in the way, take that off. That thing grips your fingers, there's a little ridge right down through there of your fingers, and when you put your hand around that thing, it just grabs you. It's a really, really good feel. It doesn't look bad, I think it looks good, it's just very, very faint. It's not that sharp when I get done with it, because you can feel thousandths of an inch with your fingers. You can feel very slight differences. This is kind of the breaking point where when I'm making this thing, I leave this part big where I can clamp it and hold it so I can really work on this and put some weight on it. When I get this made and I stop kind of right here in the wrist, I'll flip it around and hold it by this and then work the front end down. And then I'll meet my two shapes have to come together right here at the wrist. between that metal and that wood, that needs to flow. Right now I can hook my fingernail on it. And that needs to flow and be smooth. The angle of that metal rolling over needs to just continue on with that wood. Right now it doesn't. It's oversized. That's the way I have to do it. I can't just make it perfectly right off the bat. So I'll work this down with a chisel and get it down within a few thousandths and leave me enough room for sanding. But I've got to take this off here with a real good sharp chisel first. Probably need to flip it around so I can push that chisel instead of pull it. Alright, a Mannlicher style stock gets a Mannlicher end cap. It'll start about right there, and it'll have a slant about that much. So I'm going to start by chopping that off. And this is the outer diameter of my stock. It's at least that. It'll probably, I'm gonna bounce it out a little bit, let it be fatter than that Mannlicher cap. Now I'm gonna size this thing down with a bandsaw. I'm gonna get me some marks on it, and then I'm gonna take a bunch of wood off with a bandsaw. This is the thickness, the height rather, I have to end up with at the end of this, and I'm good here. So I'm gonna bring this thing up. Something like that to start with, and then I'm going to take off some of the sides. That's an approximate. That'll save me a lot of filing just to get rid of most of that. That much, because I've got the outside marked. It's about a heavy 16th, about 3/32 inside of that outside mark.